creating new habits and ditching a lot of the older bad habits. Not that we get rid of them all.
What I see a lot of people do when they get sober is they try to break all their bad habits at once. And I think that that's kind of a mistake.
It's tough to break that when it's been a survival skill for
Mhm.
so long.
We had like a shower schedule because the place I went was on a well. Half the people had to shower at night, half had to do it in the morning, and it had to be at a specific time so that we could do dishes and laundry later in the day.
This is the Don't Hide the Scars podcast, presented by Pain, Parents and Addicts in Need. Thank you for joining us on Pain's Don't Hide the Scars podcast. I'm Jason LaChance, and I'm here with our outreach coordinator, Julian Carvajal. How are you, good sir?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hey, we're in a new year, 2025, for two guys that maybe at one point in our lives, our family and loved ones wouldn't have thought we would have made it to. So
Yeah.
definitely grateful for that. And I wanted to jump into a topic that I'm getting a lot lately, and I don't know if it comes up for you with people talking to you in meetings or whatever it is, but bad habits. Like the breaking of I mean, we joked on a previous podcast about both of us in our active addiction being like, yeah, we might have brushed our teeth once a week or something,
Yeah.
So uh, bad habits are just a part of it.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of that breaking of it. Do you have a recollection of maybe a process that you went through of creating new habits and ditching a lot of the older bad habits? Not that we get rid of them all, we're human. I love sugar a little too much, but do you have any recollection of that?
Yeah, so first I just want to say like it's very difficult to break these habits, but I think what I see a lot of people do when they get sober is they try to break all their bad habits at once. And I think that that's kind of a mistake because a lot of times it becomes too overwhelming. Like it's already hard enough to quit any mind altering substance to begin with. So if you have like another bad habit, I'd wait at least like 2 to 3 months to start thinking to even start thinking about that. But yeah, I mean, for me, I had a ton of bad habits. I think the ones that were easiest to focus on in the very beginning were just the personality traits that I had, the way I treated other people. I was very angry and manipulative when I was using, and that was something that I was able to focus on right away. For one, it was a lot easier to regulate my emotions when I wasn't using. Well, I think at first it's harder because you finally feel the emotions. Um, but because you feel them, you're also able to think about them in depth and think about how they're affecting you and how they're affecting the people around you. So for me, like a big one was my anger and manipulation and kind of thinking about why am I doing this? Like, am I doing this to get a reaction out of someone? Am I doing this because I want to try to make someone react a certain way? Because that's what I would do a lot of times. It wasn't like I'm just doing something. It was always I'm doing something to get something.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you. That's such a valid point of when we do get the addiction, be it a substance, as you said, or for other people, be it gambling or be it sex or pornography or whatever it is, something along those lines. That you know we can have that huge level of manipulation that just comes along with addiction, and that's a really challenging part for someone to take a look in the mirror and do self-examination around that yes, I am all these things, but I think or have been all of these behaviors that these behaviors have been a part of my coping skills and how I've survived and so on. And that's such a huge part of that process of coming into a greater consciousness. And I think that's what sobriety and recovery, one of the monumental things about it is we can and should become very conscious and self-aware of our actions, of our behaviors. It really I think it ties very much into with the making amends and your third and fourth steps, and We have to be able to see that about ourselves, how I know I did it, especially with anyone I was dating or whatever it was to find someone to continue to baby me and co-sign my BS. So it's tough to break that when it's been a survival skill for so long. And probably longer than the substance or the addiction, whatever it was.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Um,
I know like for me, before I ever started using, I definitely think I had some kind of, I mean, I wouldn't say eating disorder, but I was really fat as a kid and I loved eating, dude. Like I would eat till like I seriously felt nauseous like almost every day. And it was a serious problem. And I guess when I started using, I mean, a lot of drugs kind of take away your appetite. So that kind of just fell away. But and I don't know why I never really came back. I know a lot of people get into sweets and stuff, but I don't really have that anymore. I think the only thing for me is like carbs sometimes. So like I love pasta. I eat pasta all the time, man. That's the only thing I got to be careful with.
Oh yeah, pizza. It's like if it didn't wouldn't kill me, it'd be a meal every day. I just put bacon and eggs on it, and we'll call it good. It's a breakfast pizza or whatever else. Um, but what about for you? I was pretty lucky, and we had brought him up before. Tony Hoffman, of course, for anybody in Fresno may know Tony's story really well. Um, but when he was helping me out, in my recovery. It was really just the focusing on the basics. Like you said, people can get caught up in trying to quit too much too soon. And for him, it really was you're going to write it out. You're going to make your bed. You're going to have your written out schedule so that you follow it, hold yourself accountable, that promise to yourself, and the brushing of your teeth at least twice a day and like getting really good at it. And like just the basic things is like, oh my gosh, I didn't do this. Or, I mean, even one of them would be like, I would wear, say, the same darn hooded sweatshirt like 2 weeks in a row without ever washing it. So it was a lot of these things that I just really ignored about myself. I might do my kids like, or I would do my kids' laundry, but I want to do my own, and that's pretty bad.
I definitely can relate to that. Like, I mean, I don't even remember really doing my laundry when I was using it. I think I probably just threw my clothes in my parents' laundry bin and would have them do it, and just pick out my clothes from their stuff whenever it was finished being clean. But uh, I don't know. I think you just get so wrapped up in all the consequences of your addiction that it's really hard to think about those little self-care activities that um, are really beneficial. I mean, now, dude, it takes me maybe 2 hours to do my laundry. Well, maybe three because I wash my clothes and then dry them, obviously, and that takes 10 minutes to just throw them in and out. But then I like meticulously fold my clothes. And so that takes me like an hour and a half because the way I fold my shirts, I fold it very particular because I like the creases being in the front, the two crease lines. So I'm like very particular with it now. And I do laundry probably twice a week now or once a week. So I think, it's funny that the, you mentioned something earlier, but I've been kind of trying to distract myself recently just because, life stuff that I don't want to feel the emotions that I'm feeling. And, instead of having those bad habits, I am trying to continue with good habits to distract myself. And one of those is folding clothes. I'll put like a show on or a movie on and just fold my clothes for an hour and a half very specifically and make sure all the wrinkles are out of my shirt. Spend 15 minutes on one shirt maybe, and it really helps me distract myself and not. It's a way of because I think we use substances we want to change the way we feel, right? And I think sobriety is a lot about changing the way you feel through good activities and good things for you. Because you still want to change the way you feel. You just got to make sure that it's not in a way that's detrimental for you and not always escape the way you feel because you're never going to be able to face what you feel and like really process it if you don't face it.
New Perceptions North, the premier drug and alcohol treatment and recovery center in Central California. A full continuum of medically supervised, top quality care with programs for detox and patient residential treatment with dual diagnosis, intensive outpatient treatment, sober living support groups, and more. New Perceptions North provides adult men and women with the highest caliber of professional health care, treating each client with compassion and respect in a safe, comfortable environment to begin the process of recovery to proudly create and sustain a life without addiction. Call 559-978-1507 or visit newperceptionsnorth.com.
And I didn't realize that all the things that I had thought I got over in my life, I didn't realize that they were still there because I never really faced them. I
Mm.
just let time kind of take them away and I'd use drugs while I felt them for the first, couple months or a year, whatever the situation was. And then because time had passed, I wouldn't think about it every day. And so I thought I was over it, right? And when I got sober, a lot of that stuff came back and I would think about it almost every day. All these little things in my life, well, big things in my life that affected me for a long time. And, I did a lot of journaling and had a therapist and counselor and stuff and really worked through the reason I was feeling these things and why I was still feeling them. And I realized that it was because I had never truly dealt with it. I just allowed enough time to pass and coped with drugs until I didn't think about it every day. And I thought once I didn't think about it, I was over it and it was fine and it was in the past. But they creeped back in, and now I'm able to form these good habits. One for my self-care, just to be a better person, do things better, make my life better, but also still to change the way I feel. When sometimes we do need a little distraction. I
Sure.
think sometimes people say they try to face things too much, and that can still be overwhelming. I mean, I have 3 years and I don't want to feel the things I feel sometimes.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's okay to distract yourself by folding clothes or watching a movie or working out. Like it's about, it's not about becoming a person that doesn't ever need to change the way they feel. It's about changing the way you feel with good activities that
Yeah.
are not going to detriment you in any way and that usually are going to help you
Yeah.
in the long run, like working out. I work out because I feel better when I work out. I don't If I don't work out, I'm like laid down depressed all the time, but if I work out, I feel good. That's changing the way I feel.
Yeah.
But it also makes my health better. It'll make me live longer. Like it has all these benefits. And I think that's really should be the focus more than trying to be this person who is so emotionally strong and intelligent that they never have to change the way they feel or never feel the need to change the way they feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's just part of the normal human experience. And to take it as is, like my girlfriend and I will joke that, we disagree on some things. We don't raise our voice in argument, but like the most tension we ever had, I went, I'm going to take a walk. And it wasn't that voices were raised or there was yelling, or we don't do name calling or any of that stuff. But it was a situation where I could tell that I was getting tested a little bit at my limit. And it was that ability now to be able to self-regulate and go, if I go out, if I get some motion, I get a little bit of exercise, get some breath going, it'll change that state and maybe even be able to help me process things. And that's the important part, like you mentioning working out, taking better care of yourself. For so many of us in addiction, we wanted one of the big four as rapidly as possible. Our dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins give it to us as much as possible. I'm kind of a theme park junkie, although in my getting older, I can't do the crazy roller coasters like I used to. Otherwise, I get a little nauseous. But um, that's another huge part of that too, is getting, we used to get it so quick and then pay the consequences on the back end. Now with taking care of our physical health, we have to do that work on the front end, and it might be a little uncomfortable in the moment at first, but once it starts to settle in, and it is just a healthier way of living and being able to process things. It's, getting like you're saying, putting a movie on, folding clothes, doing something with our hands, as you know, and can't really see it in this background, but I got off to my left here a bunch of Legos, and that's kind of my thing is, if I can work with my hands, it'll take me out of a space of where oftentimes it's very self-centered thinking, like, oh, I'm feeling woe is me and sorry for myself. And if I can kind of do something, it'll shift me back to a place of gratitude and remembering that even what I'm thinking and or feeling maybe isn't reality. Maybe it
Absolutely.
is. And either way, it doesn't really matter. It's like it's all stuff to process. I can do it
Mhm.
with breath work too, and exploring so many different things. So I think that's that important part of shifting the habits from really bad ones to, ones that are positive. Like you said, I have known you for what, 2 years now. I have never not seen you dressed nicely. Whereas you whereas you see me like the sweatpants and sweatshirts all the time. So
Yeah.
some things haven't changed.
So, yeah, that's one thing for me that um, was big when I got sober. I mean, before I always wanted to look cool and stuff, but my version of cool is a lot different than it is now. I
Right.
wore baggy jeans, big shirts, and Jordans or Air Forces, all the time. And um, I remember a specific event actually. I was in maybe seventh grade, so I was like 12, and it was the first time I had ever had like a run-in with the police or any altercation with them. And I was walking with a friend in downtown Fresno from his house to a CVS, and it was like a block. And um, we were walking. Got to the CVS. We're walking back, turned into the neighborhood that he lived in, and a police car came up behind us and pulled over right next to us. And they just got out of the car, sat us down on the curb, handcuffed us, and started like pulling out all our pockets, throwing our stuff on the ground, and basically were just asking us what we were doing. And I remember thinking like, wow, these cops are racist. They're messing with us, and all these things, especially like you hear in the rap music, all this
Yeah.
bullshit about cops. And I was thinking, wow, like it's all true, and this is all it's fucked up, and I felt so self-righteous. I was doing nothing wrong, blah blah blah. And now that I look back at it, it was definitely more about the way that I dressed than the color of my skin,
Mm.
because I've never once had anything near that happen when I dress nice. People respect me very much, no matter where I go. And I noticed, like looking back now, especially that everywhere I went, people treated me differently the way I dressed then versus the way I do now. Not just the police, not just someone at a store, like they look at you like you're gonna steal. It's not about the color of your skin. It's way more about the way you dress. Because you're sagging your pants. I mean, people who sag their pants commit more crimes than people who don't. So you gotta realize, like, I'm all for personal expression, right? Like you dress how you want, do what you want, but you can't expect people to treat you the way you would like you want to be treated. If you want to be treated a certain way, you have to dress a certain way, because whether it's just or it's wrong or right, we have social norms in this country, and every country has their social norms. If you have a bunch of tattoos, lip piercings, and blue hair, people are going to look at you different than a guy
Yeah.
who is wearing a suit that's pressed. And, it's just we have these um, class standards because people who act a certain way usually dress a certain way, and people who look like they have a lot of tattoos, people that go to prison often have a lot more tattoos than people who don't go to prison. So it's not it's not necessarily they can't know who you are without ever meeting you. So if you
Yeah.
want to be immediately treated a certain way without anyone getting to know you, then you should uh, present yourself a certain way. And for me, that was a big thing. I have tattoos. I have a tattoo here. I have another tattoo on my chest, and I will get more tattoos. But if you can see right here, it's exactly a finger length from my wrist,
Yeah.
specifically so that I can cover it with the sleeve. You know,
Yes.
I could have
Same.
got it all the way up to my wrist, but I specifically got it enough that a long sleeve shirt would cover it. And I like tattoos. I don't think people should judge me for my tattoos, but I understand they will.
Mhm.
And I care more about getting a job in the future than having a tattoo all the way up to my wrist, you know?
Yeah. Well,
And, and the other thing that you said was um, working with your hands. Like I work with my hands all the time. I build stuff for my family and work on my car. And I think at the beginning when I got sober, it was very difficult to kind of find those things that I want to do. And I wanted to go back to those bad habits because it was easy. It was easy to play video games all day or sleep all day or have sex and masturbate, you know, like all these
Yeah.
things are a lot easier because they're the instant gratification, eating, drinking sugar, all this stuff. But what I did slowly was just try new things. When things would come up, I'd say yes. You know, just say yes to new activities. I got into snowboarding. I went snowboarding yeah, I think one time before I got sober. And I the only reason I had a fond memory of it, it was because my oldest brother took me, and I've always looked up to him. It was honestly a horrible experience. Like I had this huge coat on, I could barely stand up, like. But I remember always thinking like I want to be good at snowboarding because my brother does. And I always was interested in snowboarding, but I never went back again because it was hard. I went again. Oh, actually, no, I went a year before I got sober, and I practiced a bunch, and I actually got good at it. And that was one of the first things I did when I got sober. I found another guy who I lived with who was just getting into snowboarding, and I was like, "Bro, I love snowboarding. Let's go." And it was right after I got a year sober. Um, so I was like a year sober in a month and trying to peak open. And we went for every weekend for like a month, 2 months to trying to peak. And that was, I still have my snowboard in my garage. And like, that's a big thing for me is snowboarding is something that I love doing. And I thought that it would be different doing it sober. And it is different. It's a lot easier. It hurts more when you fall, but you know, you're not so much out of breath when you're doing it. And a lot of these experiences are really fun, and you just got to try new things, no matter how difficult they seem, no matter how small or big. Like you never know what you're gonna fall in love with until you try it.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, at 559 579 1551 or visit us online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Pain Nonprofit. And please subscribe to the Don't Hide the Scars podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And if you would like to donate to PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, please click the link in the description to make your tax-deductible donation today and help us save more lives gripped by addiction.
My love of theme parks, you know, I grew up, my mom taking me to Disneyland all the time because she grew up down there, but you know, I grew up 6 hours away, but we would go a lot. And having recently gone, you know, twice this year, finally being in a financial place of being able to do that. And you know, just something that I just love, and it's a very joyous experience for me, much like the building Legos, these things that I loved to do as a kid. Um, but it was also, you know, really reverting back to some of the basics that are really important to me. So, I always tell people like, are you making your bed? Are you brushing your teeth? Are like you, like, are you doing your laundry and folding your clothes and washing your dishes? And hey, I get it. Like I have long days and right now there are some dishes in the sink, but there won't be tonight. I don't allow it to go on for too long like I used to, where it just be like piled up and almost to the point of, if I recollect one time, I think I just threw out a bunch of stuff one time instead of washing it. It's like, like that's some addict logic right there. Oh, forget this thing. It'll take me 15 minutes to do. I'll just go buy a bunch of stuff with money I don't have anyways, or definitely prioritize towards the purchase of something else for sure. So I think it's that importance of getting back to basics. So I was curious, like how do you start your day? Do you kind of have it laid out what you're gonna do? I'm usually a shower at night person unless I do exercise in the morning. That's twice in one day. The making of the bed, etc. What about you?
Yeah, so for me, I think it was kind of set out for me when I was in inpatient when I went to rehab. We had like a shower schedule because the place I went was on a well. So people like half the people had a shower at night, half had to do it in the morning, and it had to be at a specific time so that we could do dishes and laundry later in the day. So I think the first like 2 weeks I showered at night just because it was too cold in the morning, and with my withdrawals, I wouldn't be able to stand up in the shower. I'd be shaking so much. Even if it was hot water, just the cold air would like hit me really hard. But I really got my routine uh, when I was in sober living because in both they made us make our bed and wake up at a certain time, so I was kind of used to that. And so when I was in sober living, I started showering in the mornings, making my bed every day, and the first thing I would do, my alarm clock would go off. I'd slide out of bed and just let my knees hit the ground and start praying. And I do like a gratitude list and thank God for the things that I have in my life, and try to do at least one new thing every day that I'm grateful for. And and after a while, I started doing my third step prayer, basically just asking God to um, implement His will in my life and allow me to turn over my decisions to Him instead of taking control into my own hands. And that's what I've been doing for the past 2.5 years. Has been every morning I don't even like sit up. I just slide my legs out and hit the ground because I'm tired, and I pray, and that's kind of how I wake up in the morning is just pray what I'm grateful for, and for God to work in my life and allow me to turn my decisions over to Him. And then after that, I get up, make my bed, shower, and get started with the day and brush my teeth and all that stuff.
Yeah, the basics, the good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, and it's so important to do because one of the things I really want to leave anyone listening, either you're new to recovery or struggling through yours, or maybe have yet to take that journey or have a loved one, is the last part of what you shared there about with gratitude. And the more you do that, you start to any sort of victim mentality that you may or may not have had. And the vast majority of us who end up struggling with addiction, we have gone through some childhood trauma. So we did have a state of being victimized at one point, but we don't have to live in that anymore. And
And
I
a lot
know,
of us want to live in it because it's
yes,
easier to blame someone else than blame yourself and take responsibility.
yes, yes. And I know some maybe listening might go, well, geez, I went through, X, Y, and Z, and Julian and I have been through some stuff, and we know people that have been through some very gnarly stuff.
I promise you, someone in this world has gone through something worse than you. I've met
Yes.
people like, and that's the one thing that helps me. I know it's kind of messed up, but it does help me is that I meet the like with what I'm going through right now with my I think I mentioned to you with the relationship stuff, and I talked to a friend I hadn't seen in nearly a year probably, and I saw him on New Year's Eve, and uh, he was like, "Where you been, man? I haven't seen you in a while." And he was happy. He seemed, he was like happy, like normal. And I was telling him, what I was going through, and oh, this dude told me very similar situation, but he's probably about your age. and a little older, and he's going through a divorce, and I was just like, what the like like all this stuff that he was saying was happening, and I was like, bro, how are you even like here right now? I would be like melting down. That's like the worst thing I could think of. And it made me feel like, wow, I'm over here complaining and feeling sorry for myself for what's going on. And this dude is here, happy to see me, happy to be here. And he's going through something way worse than I am. And
Mm.
and it helps you see like anything you think in your life that's a big deal, it's a big deal because it's what you're going through at the time. And it's whatever emotion you're feeling, it's the most that you're feeling at that very moment. And when you see something else or hear something else from someone close to you, you see like how small your problems really are in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard because any of these things we go through, love and loss and etc. Maybe a job or, someone passing, all losing a pet, all these things. They're all real, but it's for me, I much like I had a venture that I had worked hard on for 5 years just came to an end. And when it came to an end, it was just like the other individual's like, yeah, it's done. It's like, well, can I carry on? Like I can do this without you. It was like, no, no, you're done. And it was really having to let go and remember, oh yeah, it wasn't mine to start with. And okay, what favor is God actually trying to do for me in this moment? And it's hard to get there because we are all
Yeah.
entitled to process and feel our emotions and that loss, especially, like with you, this someone you were close to that has been support, and it's that acceptance of something's going to change and evolve, and it just takes some time, but eventually, as if we can really just focus on being grateful for everything that comes our way. That's why I tell
hmm
people read Viktor Frankl. That guy, World War II,
Is
in
that
terms,
the man's search for meaning?
is that, yes, correct.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that book, dude.
In
That is an
internment camp
amazing
and
book.
yeah. Um,
Incredible book. I
yeah.
suggest everyone read that. That is an amazing book.
Yeah. And if that guy who his parents and I believe one of his sisters, right, was all killed by Nazis, it's just horrific.
He's
But
he's the one that was in the I don't think it was Auschwitz, but he's in an internment camp and like goes through this whole thing about how they all found gratitude
yeah.
and happiness even though they were in a concentration camp.
Yeah.
It is an amazing book.
Yeah. But very powerful reading, and thank you for kind of sharing that story because it is one of those situations, and we need to know that maybe if it's early recovery and we've asked for help, there's still continual help as we go. There's tons of people that are out there that'll help you form new habits. Open your mind up to these kind of things, this type of literature or other people's stories or whatever it is. So just know that if you or it's a loved one struggling, there is hope and that you can keep going.
hmm And on the topic of bad habits and just habit forming, that was a big thing for me. Like I was in this relationship for 4 years. Like it was someone that I spoke to every day for 4 years. Like it was a big thing. And I've had other things similar, like people that I was close to pass away, people I talked to every single day pass away. One of my close friends, um, we spoke every day for probably a year. The last year I was using every single day. We either spoke or hung out. And the last time I saw him in person was when I got sober. And I think it was like 6 months later, he passed away and he was 18 years old. And I remember like feeling so much guilt that I should have reached out to him because I had gotten sober. And now with what I'm going through, it's like your life, these things become such a part of your life. It is a habit itself, seeing these people, talking to these people, and it's hard to form new habits. And right now, I want to watch TV, play video games, do these easy things that are going to give me gratification to not think. And instead, I try to do fill my day up with good things to distract me from the feeling that lost, but also I need something to do with my life now that I'm not spending that time with that specific person or doing the things I would do with them or something like that. And that was something in my early recovery that was difficult was everything I did was wrapped around drugs and the people I hung out with while I was doing drugs. So now it kind of felt like I had no friends, I had very few friends, and that I had no habits besides the bad ones that I was doing for the past 6 years when I got sober. So, it's very difficult when you first get sober and throughout the entirety of your sobriety because that's just life.
Yeah.
Um, but every time that you lose a habit, whether by your own decision, whether it's a bad or good habit, when you lose something like that, you have to make a point of filling it with another good habit, or if it's a bad habit, fill it with a new good habit.
Yep.
And I
Absolutely.
looked it up. It is Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Amazing book.
Yes, sir. Well, and hey, we appreciate you guys listening to the Don't Hide the Scars podcast. Of course, Apple Podcast, Spotify. Leave us a rating and a review there. Share with someone you think will get value out of it. And don't forget to check us out on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@pain_nonprofit. And if you are struggling or a loved one is, please don't hesitate to reach out to us here.
Like and subscribe.